Since the 1980s and the premiership of Margaret Thatcher, Britain has evolved a rather strong tradition of selling off public and economic assets. Over the years, we've sold off, among others, our water utilities, British Rail, the National Air Traffic Services, and the Royal Mail. The main question in this video is, might Brexit put our foreign policy up for sale too? A couple weeks ago, most of humanity celebrated the new year. The US military and President Trump decided to throw their own party, a surprise death party for Iranian general and head of the Quds Force, Qassem Suleimani. Unfortunately, this death party caused local noise level infractions and upset the neighbors in whose yard they launched these rockets. Reminds me of a party I've been to. Life outside of the world's biggest social market economy is going to be very different. There will be new demands on the United Kingdom's foreign and economic policy. Forging a web of new relationships in a radically altered politico-economic situation is a daunting process. In their response, they meekly implied that conflict is in no one's interest, whilst not forgetting to attribute some blame to Iran. That there wasn't enough for the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who was dissatisfied with the European answer and stated the following: "Frankly, the Europeans haven't been as helpful as I wish they could have been. The Brits, the French, the Germans all need to understand that what we did, what the Americans did, saved lives in Europe as well." The British Prime Minister, having seemingly misplaced his Johnson, duly issued an additional statement saying the UK was entirely behind the US. And whilst our political class obviously feels closer to the US and to China, especially having played Robin to the US's Batman in Iraq and Afghanistan, there is an extremely inconvenient reality though. This inconvenient reality being that you're not on the bridge of the ship anymore. There is only one captain on the USS America. The people's interests are not served by delusion. The case of a young lad, Harry Dunn, actually illustrates this quite well. Harry Dunn was killed in a hit and run by the wife of a US intelligence official near a Royal Air Force base. The wife of the intelligence official fled the country, and the US now refuses to extradite.
In a statement, the Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said, "I called the US ambassador earlier to express the government's disappointment about this decision. We feel this amounts to a denial of justice, and we believe Ansar Koulas should return to the UK. We are now urgently considering our options." But the US says granting extradition would set a troubling precedent.
Is this the behavior of a true ally? We simply don't have the leverage. On the other hand, we used to be one of the many chefs in the European kitchen, and it was a flawed kitchen, all right? However, as is our right, we're taking a stroll outside to try and figure out what we want and who we want to be. The Brexit campaign was supposed to be about taking back control. But was it about taking back control to mail it to Washington? Britannia really shouldn't be prostituting herself across the high seas in search of a buck. Britain must sail a course with the most freedom realistically possible to have a very important internal conversation. Internal conversation that's been neglected for decades. To find out what kind of society we want to be and which values to sincerely carry into the world. Do we want to be a society with a stalling life expectancy, but an absolutely booming financial sector? Do we want to be a country which nominally promotes international law abidance, but condones the assassination of foreign leaders? We can't have a conversation about our substance if we've sold our soul.